Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here as we talk about all of our favorite things, movies and TV shows and all types of good stuff like that. We even talk about some other things now and again, a little bit of UFC, a little bit of things going on in the world, if we so choose. And, of course, this is how today's show is going to go, guys. I have picked out 3 glorious topics that you guys have emailed into me letting me know you want talked about. How do you get a topic or a question on the John Campea Show? It's really simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you put that word topic in the subject line. That way I know your question is for the show. And as always, guys, keep your emails as short as possible. Absolute maximum is 90 words, so 90 words or less. And then after that, we're going to go over to some live questions. You guys can send in live questions using the Super Chat. It guarantees you get your question on. And of course, it's a great way to support the show. And I thank you for all you guys who use that. All right. So, box office came. We're going to talk a little bit of 50 Shades. We're going to talk a little bit about Tom Cruise. We're going to talk about our film critics, at least some of them, purposefully contrarian. That's a word we hear thrown around a lot about some film critics. We're going to talk about that stuff. And then, of course, a little later, we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. By the way, guys, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of you have been asking me to put up new video game cutscene movie reviews. I put up my latest one yesterday, and it's on one of the funniest ones I've ever seen, which is, of course, South Park Fractured But Whole. That's up on my channel right now, so you can go and check that out a little bit later. All right, guys, with that out of the way, let's dive into it and get to the first official question today. And the first official question today comes to us from Kallum, who writes, I watched your review for 50 Shades Freed, have not seen one of these films, and then saw the profit those movies made. It makes me a bit sad that some great movies didn't do as well as these supposedly terrible ones. Does this mean more people are interested in these types of movies, and will the studios continue to make these types of supposedly horrible films? All right. Thanks a lot for the question, man. And of course, 50 Shades Freed came in #1 at the box office this weekend. I believe, yeah, first place was 50 Shades, made just a hair under $39 million. Next was Peter Rabbit. Next was 1517 to Paris. Next was Jumanji. And next was Greatest Showman. By the way, Jumanji and Greatest Showman, both in their 8th weeks. 8th weeks, and both still in the top 5. That's really, now granted, they've had a lot less competition to deal with in this window of time that they've been in, but still 8 weeks in the top 5 is really impressive. But anyway, 50 Shades Freed comes out, cracks another one, just a hair under $39 million on its opening weekend. Now, put that in perspective. The first 50 Shades movie made about $85 million opening weekend. Second one made $46 million opening weekend. This one made $39. So we see that the audience is growing tired of it, but still making big money. I mean, $39 million is nothing to sneeze at for a smaller-ish budget film like this to make that kind of money. Well, yeah, which raises the question, why do these movies make money? I mean, we all know how terrible they are, and they're terrible. They're just, in my Charles Barkley voice, terrible. They're just terrible. I love Charles. They're just terrible movies. So why do these movies make money? Why do they continue to make this kind of money when other films will come out and struggle to get anywhere near those types of dollar figures? Well, I want to suggest to you 3 reasons why 50 Shades makes money, why specifically 50 Shades won the box office this weekend. Now, one of the things I'm not going to talk about is the competition. It opened against Peter Rabbit, which was marketed horribly, does not look like it has wide appeal, and 1517 to Paris. Nobody really sounded all that interested in that. And Jumanji and Greatest Showman were in their 8th week. So really, yes, the red carpet was rolled out for 50 Shades to win this weekend, sure. But I want to talk about 3 reasons that specifically have to do with the movie itself. Okay, I'm not talking about external circumstances, and yes, the competition level plays a big part, but I want to talk about 3 reasons why 50 Shades, #1, has made money, and #2, continues to make money, and won the box office this weekend. All right, so here we go. Reason #1, and this is the most obvious reason. They come from a very popular line of books. I mean, people ate these books up. These books became massive pop culture phenomena. Who would have thought that these little stories that started off as Twilight fan fiction, then they just changed a little bit of it to make it a new story, but they started off as Twilight fan fiction, would turn into something like this. They had massive followings. I remember even my wife, Anne, was in not a book group, but a book group specifically for the 50 Shades movies that got together once a week to discuss the books. I mean, it was a phenomenon, these books. Even though they were terribly written and all that kind of stuff, didn't matter. They were massively, massively popular books. We saw in the first one that they had a following. I even think the first one came out a little too late. Probably should have came out an extra year early. Probably would have made even more money. But regardless. And we just see the residual effects of that. Now, yeah, the box office has been dropping a lot, but it's still making a lot of money. And I think the first thing we got to look at is that it comes from a series of incredibly popular pop culturally relevant books that really made an impact and had a splash. So, okay, there's reason number one. Now, we're going to get into two more reasons here that I need you to follow, because these could sound really bad, but follow along with me here, okay? Reason number two. Women love sex too. Women love sex too. A lot of guys forget that. Women love sex too. And here's the thing. But you can say, well, John, there's lots of sex in different movies. Yeah, but it always seems to me, and because I remember last year, I got together with a group of 4 of my girlfriends, right? And I just grilled them on why is 50 Shades so popular? Why? Because I wanted to hear from a woman's perspective. Why is 50 Shades so popular? Why is 50 Shades so popular? You guys are not going to let me get away with that slip of the tongue. And just, why? Why is this thing so popular? Why is this thing so popular? And one of the big things that they said is sex is women love sex too. And here's the thing. You can say that lots of movies have sex, yes, but the reality is most sex in movies is completely geared to men and to appeal to tantillate our senses. They really are geared that way. And one of the things I've learned over the years is that, if you want to make sex appealing to men and women, that's often two different things. And I can't ever really remember seeing a major Hollywood film where, sex sells that really approached selling the sex towards women. It's really usually done towards men. The stuff with 50 Shades has been specifically geared towards women to tantillate them. And that we've never really seen that in a big movie before. I mean, maybe you can, if you want to go back a whole bunch to maybe something like, I don't know, if you want to go back to 9.5 Weeks or something, maybe you can make an argument for that. But for the most part, we haven't seen a big pop culture film that really used the whole sex sells motif and tried to sell it to women. And I don't think you can underestimate that. I think we as men take for granted that it's always targeted at us. Like whenever the sex sells strategy is employed for a movie, it's always employed in such a way to appeal to us, the dudes. And I think for women to see something that, oh my God, you mean they're finally making one that's kind of target, whether it's good or not, whatever, they're targeting something at us. They're doing this in such a way to try to, serve the demographic of us. I think that's huge. And that's one of the things I got a lot from that group of girlfriends of mine, just saying, it's different. We've never really seen this before in big budget, pop culture films like this. So that's huge. So number one, these are in no particular order, but number one, I think it makes money, continues to be popular because they're very popular books. Number two, women like sex too, and it's, and selling sex to women can work. I think we've seen that huge with 50 Shades. Because, oh my God, between the 3 50 Shades movies, we've had, I think, probably like 15 sex scenes, all the exact same sex scenes, all between the same 2 people, and all of them just doing the same thing. But whatever, they know their demographic and they're going after it. Let's go on to reason number 3. And really, this is my top one. And I want to be careful about how I describe this because I could get myself into trouble. So I want to be very cautious about how I describe this. But this to me is the number 1 reason. This third reason is the top reason why we see 50 Shades continue to make money. And it's this. Again, much like the sex sells thing, it's targeted. It's something that's targeted towards women, but here's what it is. When we start to talk about our everyday fantasies, what's your dream? What's your fantasy, We as human beings tend to get real shallow. Men, women, adults, children, teenagers, black, white, Asian, European, whatever. When we start to talk about our dreams and our fantasies and stuff like that, we tend to get really shallow. We do. Because, you know, if you could have, like, you had one wish tomorrow, what would it be? Have $1 billion. We get real shallow. You want to talk, often when you talk to a guy about what's your fantasy woman, you find out we get real shallow. Because a lot of times when you talk to a guy and say, just pure fantasy woman, just playground of fantasy here, what's your ideal woman? They're not going to describe an MIT grad. They're not going to describe somebody who's incredibly self-confident and has their own opinions and blah, 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 blah. No, we may really value that, but when you talk about our fantasies, we get very shallow. We get very shallow very fast when we're talking about just our surface fantasy stuff, right? Women do too. It's just that we've seen so much movies appeal to that whole fantasy motif, and it's always just targeted as us men, right? Well, remember Weird Science? And Kelly, I can't even remember Kelly's last name. The girl the computer made for them, right? That's what happened. And the guys go, because that's their fantasy girl, right? Super hot supermodel in a midriff cut-off shirt and tight shorts and blah, blah. And that's because when we just talk on that level, just pure fantasy, we get real shallow. Women do too. And I remember talking to my girlfriends about that. And it's like, you're talking about 50 Shades. Now, obviously, we hadn't seen 50 Shades Freed yet, but it's completely transferred over. You know, you talk to a woman about what's going to appeal to the pure fantasy women. Pure fantasy to guys. Computer makes a girl that you don't even have to deal with. She's just super hot supermodel, midriff, tight jeans, skin everywhere. They know that they're going to appeal to our base nature and on that fantasy level with men. There's a way to do that to women too. And in talking to my girlfriends, what I found, like, what appealed to them was, like, the fact that, first of all, you get a super hot guy who is, all girls feel like they want a bad boy, but a bad boy who will totally do whatever it is they tell them to do. Again, remember, we're human beings. We get very shallow when we start talking about our fantasies. Men, women, all of us. But we want a bad boy, but a bad boy who will actually do whatever I want them to do. They're super hot. And they're not just rich, but they're so rich that they can make any dream of mine come true. I mean, just like men, women get real shallow when you start talking about just the pure fantasy, right? And who can blame them? I mean, if I could imagine into existence some woman who's like the hottest woman alive, even though I'm already married to the hottest woman alive, but who is also a billionaire and has all endless resources to make anything I want to do in my life completely possible. Like you look in 50 Shades Freed, right? She's a mid-level to lower-level employee at a bookstore, a publishing company. And because she's married now to the owner, she's like chief publisher and blah, blah, blah. And sure, they have a line in the movie going, no, you're not getting this because you're married to me. You're getting this because you earned it. No, I saw the movie. She didn't earn it. You just gave it to her. But this whole notion about appealing our shallowest fantasies, except that we're just used to as guys having our shallowest fantasies marketed at us. Now we've got these set of movies that are targeting their shallowest of fantasies, but instead of to men, to women. And women have not had a lot of chance. Hollywood most normally usually panders to us. And when they do pander to women, they often don't go to the pure fantasy and to the whatever. They often keep it more mature because women are more mature than men. But in 50 Shades, they get a super hot dude. And the he's a good looking dude, man. I mean, he's a good looking dude. Super hot dude who's a bad boy and he's rough and he's all those things, but he's actually a complete puppy and will do whatever she says. Now, there's several times in the movie that he's just like, whatever she says goes, blah, blah, blah. Like, so they want bad boy, but they don't want him to be bad. They want him to be totally pliable to whatever their will is. We do that too. With, the hot sex, but also has so much money they can buy me my dream house, give me my dream job, take me on my dream vacations. And that's what these things are. Like, if you saw my review for 50 Shades, it's all money, sex, repeat. Money, sex, repeat. Money, sex, repeat. That's the whole movie. It's all just geared towards the most base and shallow fantasies. And who can blame women for eating that up? Because we, as guys, have eaten it up forever. So anyway, those are my reasons why we shouldn't be shocked that even though the movies did not turn out good, that these are movies that continued to make money. Yes, their box office has dropped continuously. People are catching on that there's just too much to deal with, but still, it's made money. I mean, worldwide, 50 Shades has already made over like $135, $136 million worldwide already on a relatively low budget film. So yeah, people ask me, why is 50 Shades making money? There's your reasons. That actually perfectly makes sense when you think about it, that these films that do this, that very intelligently, what the studio has done is understand what these stories, who they're targeted at, and how can we pander to that demographic the best to really serve what it is they want to see. And they did it. Would it have been better if those movies had also been good? Yes, but they weren't. Who cares? That's why they made money. Anyway, I've already talked far more about 50 Shades than I've ever wanted to. So we're going to move on to the next topic there. But again, like I said, when your basic point, when your bullet point is women have shallow fantasies, I need to make sure that I fully explain that all of us as human beings, men the most, have really shallow fantasies. And I wanted to just talk about that. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Santos, who writes, while opinions on movies do differ, do you believe that some critics present an opposing opinion just for the sake of being different and to get extra attention? All right, Santos, thanks a lot for the question, man. And look, that is actually something I have heard tons of. That when some movie critic somewhere gives an opinion that does not go along with the popular opinion, a lot of film fans then come out of the woodwork and say, you're just saying that to be different and to get more attention. And again, that goes back. Do you remember one of my whole things? One of the new rules that I think film fans need to adopt is stop making excuses for other people having a different opinion than you. That is a thing that drives me the most nuts. Like, if I don't like a movie and somebody comes out to me, somebody who's never met me, doesn't know me, and says, you just say you didn't like it because of this. It's like, oh God, another brainless drone making up an excuse for why I don't think the same way they do. We as film fans need to stop doing that. And this whole notion of, like saying that, oh, that critic just says they didn't like it because they wanted to be different to get attention. That's just making an excuse. That's just making an excuse for a film critic not liking a movie that you liked. Well, other film critics liked it. Yeah, well, all film critics are different, just like regular movie fans. We're all different. We all have different tastes. We all have different point of views. We all have different experiences because film is subjective. That's what happens. But still, it never ceases to happen that when, a couple of critics come out and they have a different point of view on let's say a negative point of view on a popular movie or a positive point of view on a unpopular movie, it's like clockwork. Out of the woodwork will come you're just saying that to get attention. Here's the thing. And I need you guys to drive this home. And this is the 100% truth. The one thing that film critics do not want is to be contrarian. And you can say, but John, it gets you attention. You know what? It's the wrong attention. The biggest piece of bullshit saying in Hollywood is, any PR is good PR. And so if you believe that lie, then yeah, I could see where you were coming from to say, oh, that film critic just didn't like this movie because they're trying to be contrarian just so they can get attention because any attention is good attention. So really? Just tell that to Harvey Weinstein right now. Go ahead, you do that. You can sit back and go, wow, Harvey Weinstein must be thrilled right now because any PR is good PR. You think Kevin Spacey right now is sitting in his cave somewhere, in the hills of Uganda, hiding out, not wanting anybody to see him, and thinking, well, at least it might be bad PR, but at least it's good PR, but at least it's PR, and any PR is good PR. You think that's what Kevin Spacey's thinking right now? It's the biggest load of shit that any PR is good PR. Tell Tom Cruise that after he did his whole couch jumping thing on Oprah. Because that just about killed his career. If it wasn't for Tropic Thunder and him playing Les Grossman, we would not be talking about movies today with Tom Cruise still in them. Because any PR is good PR. No, it's not. As a film critic, and this is unfortunate because of the type of environment we're in, film critics do not want to be known as the contrarians. Because the way film fandom is today, unless you say what people believe, people will stop reading you. Unless you say exactly what people already think, you start losing viewers. You cannot, if you're known as a contrarian, look, we can talk about Armand White all we want, right? Do you know the only thing Armand White is known for is for being that guy? People don't actually read him. There's a reason he doesn't have a television show or a super popular YouTube channel or a super popular article somewhere. He just doesn't, because he's known as a joke. Because he puts out all this you put out the contrarian stuff, it kills you. It just kills you. And that's unfortunate, because we live in a fandom today, and it stretches beyond fandom, it goes to politics, goes to everything, where most people only want to hear what they already believe. I think you'll agree that that's a part of our basic human nature. And I'm not, I try to fight against that, but I'm not immune to that either. We all are. That for the most part, we only want to hear things we already believe. I get some very well-intentioned emails from people saying, John, I love listening to your movie reviews because I always agree with you. And I'm like, yeah, well, what happens when you don't agree with me then? Like, to me, my favorite film critic of all time was Roger Ebert, and I disagreed with him at least half the time. I just loved how he communicated his points of view and his thoughts, because even when he liked a movie I didn't like, him presenting his opinion helped me understand better why I don't like it, and helped me understand more why somebody who does like it would, and that's why I valued him as a film critic. Unfortunately, a lot of people today, they only want to listen to film critics or pundits that they already agree with. And the moment you say something you don't already agree with, the line, "You're just doing that for attention," comes out. Or, "You didn't like this movie? You've lost all your credibility." Like, that's another one that brain dead morons throw around a lot too. Believe me, there is nothing more. There's a part of me every time I go into a movie to watch a film. If it's a real popular one, everybody's looking forward to it. Yeah, damn right. Down inside of me, there's a part that goes, oh God, I hope I like this, because everybody else is expecting to like it. And if I don't like it and I come out and say I don't like it, I'm going to get hammered for it. Now, I push that aside and I give my honest opinion anyway. But there's a part of me that's like, oh God, please like this, John, because everybody else is all excited about it. Please like it. Or if I'm going into a movie that everybody's trashing on, oh, please don't like it, John, because when I get on the show, I'm just going to have to give you my honest opinion. I'm just going to have to give you my honest opinion. But being a contrarian can kill you as a film critic. It can kill you as a film critic. You're far more likely to be popular if you say things everybody else agrees with. And it's true in our politics as well. I mean, for heaven's sakes, I mean, you think a lot of social progressive people are watching Fox? Because they don't want to hear things they don't agree with. You think a lot of social conservatives are watching MSNBC? Nope, they just want to watch Fox because Fox says what they already agree with. And that's that's what we do. And same true. So no, I reject the notion that film critics just give like a negative, a contrarian opinion just to get attention, because that attention will kill you. It's like saying, I'm going to shoot myself in the throat just to get attention. That'll help my career. Yeah, but John, you'll be dead. But it will get me a lot of attention if there's headlines that I shot myself in the neck. I'll get lots of headlines. Film critic shoots himself in the neck. It'll get lots of headlines. Yeah, but that's counterproductive. You'll die. and you will not help your career at all. That's what it's like saying that, oh, some film critic. I remember a friend of mine, I won't mention her name, a friend of mine who was a film critic was the first person to give a negative review to Avengers, the first Avengers film. And I remember, and I loved Avengers. She hated it. Okay. It didn't work for her. Fine. But she got death threats. She got like people calling her every name in the book. I mean, it was crazy. You think she wanted that? You think she wanted that attention? She did not. So anyway, I just want to put to rest this whole myth that's out there that critics will just give a contrarian opinion because they want the attention. No, because that type of attention buries you. When I like Mad Max Fury Road, but I didn't love it as much as everybody, I gotta say it, like, Mad Max Fury Road, not my top 5 films of the year. Maybe it was my top 5, but like not one of my top 3 films of the year. And I get hammered. How dare you? You do blah, 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 blah. It's like, hey, I wish I could have said it was the greatest thing of all time so you would just heap love on me, but I got to be honest with you. Because I'm doing you a disservice, I'm doing myself a disservice, I'm not just being honest. So anyway, that's why I reject this notion that critics just are contrarian on purpose, because that hurts their careers. Long term, it damages them, it loses them viewers, it loses them subscribers, it loses them audience. And it's ultimately not good, because it is a lie to say any PR is good PR, just not the truth. All right. Final email question of the day. And this one comes to us from John Spear. And John Spear writes, did you see that Mission Impossible Fallout behind the scenes video showing Tom Cruise flying the helicopters? I can't believe he actually learned to fly a helicopter just to do a couple of crazy stunts. Forget method acting. That's real dedication. I know Tom already gets a lot of credit for stunt work, but I still don't think he gets enough. Your thoughts? Well, I honestly don't know that we should give a lot of credit for actors doing their own stunt work. Especially when you can very easily get a stunt person to do it and it doesn't change the quality of the movie. But you can't help but admire the dedication Tom Cruise brings to his movies, man. You cannot help but admire that type of dedication. Now, yes, he was already a pilot. Tom Cruise has been flying planes for years, but he did not know how to fly a helicopter. And he thought, you know what? It'll look more and feel more authentic. And if it feels more authentic, it'll raise the excitement of the scene. If I just learn how to fly helicopters well enough that I can pull off this sequence myself. And you're right, man. That's dedication. That is dedication. Tom Cruise, this 55-year-old guy who's got all the money in the world, doesn't have to do anything for the rest of his life if he doesn't want to. Pulling off this stuff just to try to raise it. And you know, also, it raises the marketability of the film because you know they're using Tom Cruise like they're putting out these behind-the-scenes videos. They're using this as marketing for the film as well. And on that level, it's brilliant too. Tom Cruise wants to be known as the fearless dude. He's doing all this stuff for his movie, which is getting more attention for his movie, which is ultimately going to lead to more box office for his movie. It's good for business. It's good for his PR, because no PR is bad PR. It's good for his PR. It's good for everything. But yeah, man, especially when you consider this isn't some up-and-comer who needs to try to make a name for himself. This is Tom freaking Cruise, jumping across buildings, learning to fly helicopter stunts. That's nuts. And he's doing it. It doesn't make him a better actor. But, I mean, as a dude, man, your respect level for the guy has got to go up a little bit when you see him pulling this kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm very curious to see this movie, man. I am very, very curious to see this movie. All right, guys. Listen, I've gone a little bit overtime in the first part because we spent so much time on the 50 Shades thing. But do me a favor, guys. If you have not sent in a super chat yet, no more super chats. Please cut off super chats. No more, because I got more than enough here to take us for the rest of the time. The last one I'm going to take is the one that was just sent in from Joe Rapazzo at 8:27. So this is the final one I'm going to take. So with that out of the way, let me do just a quick plug here for my Patreon campaign, guys. Listen, the things that keeps the lights on and makes these shows possible is my Patreon campaign. Listen, do me a favor. If you enjoy watching my shows, take just a minute and go over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about, number one, what it means to be a Patreon supporter. Number two, how being a Patreon supporter makes sure that these shows continue to air. And number three, what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter. And maybe then you'll decide to be a Patreon supporter too, which would be awesome. Okay, with that out of the way, let's jump over to the first live question today. And the first live question today comes to us from Charles Harkins, who writes, does a supporting character getting more screen time than the main character a good thing? It all depends on the story. I mean, then if the supporting character is getting more screen time, are they the supporting character? And it really all depends on the story. There's no one formula that is the way all films are supposed to be. So it depends on the movie, depends on the story, depends on the character. But if one character is getting more screen time than another, I would probably argue that other character is probably the main character. Just a thought. I mean, you can call, like, Coco, right? You can say Coco's about Coco, but it's not. The little boy gets more screen time. The little boy, the movie's about him, really. You can call the movie Coco if you want, but it's about him. I mean, it really all depends on the individual story. There's no one formula. Charles then follows up by writing, case in point, when we first met on Netflix, Alexander Daddario was only top billed because of the star power, not screen time or importance to the movie. Well, just because somebody's top billed doesn't mean they're the main character. And that's just marketing. I remember when Mission Impossible 2 was coming out, Anthony Hopkins was like at the height of the powers in his career. And it was starring Tom Cruise and Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins is in like 5 minutes of the movie, if that. But it's marketing. They build them. So that's what they did. So I don't know that that hurts the movie in and of itself. Like, you got to put the marketing and everything else behind you when you go in to watch a movie. So I don't know if it hurts the movie at all. But it is a little point of annoyance to me. But I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest. Except for when, like, as long as Alexander Daddario is I haven't seen the movie, but as long as she's a key character in it and she's got more than 5 minutes of screen time, then I'm okay with it. It's situations like Kingsman 2 where they say, starring this guy, and Channing Tatum. And Channing Tatum's in 5 minutes of the movie, but they bill him like he's like one of the main characters in the film, right? And he's all over the trailers and his name's on all the posters. And then he's in for 5 minutes. That's different. I haven't seen this movie you're talking about. I don't know if Alexander Daddario or the other character is like 5 minutes, but when a character's in it more than we were expecting, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Haskell 420 writes, "Hey John, did you watch the new Showtime animated show, Our Cartoon President? It debuted last night. Sent you a tweet regarding it. It's like a mockumentary, but real, and comes from Stephen Colbert, a must-watch." I've heard about it. I am a big fan of Stephen Colbert. I think the dude's hilarious, but I have not seen it, so I really can't comment on it. But I have heard about it, and I am curious to check it out. So I will be checking it out when I get a chance, Haskell. Julian Mitchell writes, "Biggest Oscar movie, a snub movie of all time. For me, Shawshank, nominated for 7 categories and not 1 award. And that's my favorite movie of all time." Look, again, though, we got to be careful when we're talking about Academy Awards. Like, just because it's your favorite movie doesn't mean it should have won for Best Sound Editing. It doesn't mean, I can't remember off the top of my head, other than Best Picture, what the 7 categories were it was nominated in. But again, it's not like, oh, it's a great movie, so we have to give it this original score award. What does that have to do with anything? And that's the thing about the Oscars. Now, I do think it was a snub. Not so much a snub, because it's hard to call it a snub, because the movie that won that year was Forrest Gump. And Forrest Gump is a beloved movie that people loved. So I wouldn't really call it a snub. Do I think Shawshank should have won over it? Yes. But I don't know that I call it a snub. To me, the biggest snub in Oscar history is, even though I hate the movie, Star Wars The Phantom Menace easily should have won Best Visual Effects that year. Instead, they gave it to The Matrix, which had good visual effects. And yeah, they created the bullet time thing, which was cute. But everything about The Phantom Menace and its visual effects was revolutionary of the day. And the whole movie was it. That, to me, is the biggest snub, I think, in Oscar history. That was just Hollywood saying to George Lucas, "We don't like you because you shunned Hollywood." Like, that, to me, is the biggest snub. And it's not even for a good movie, but that's the kind of way I look at it. Let's see. Ben Rayner writes, "For all time, save one and trash one. Back to the Future or Ferris Bueller?" Oh, I love Ferris Bueller, but yeah, absolutely Back to the Future. As long as we're talking about Back to the Future 1 and not Back to the Future 2 or 3, I would take Ferris Bueller over Back to the Future 2 or 3. But if we're talking about number 1, keep Back to the Future. Angel Sanchez writes, "Intro idea. I'm your host with the most, John Campea." Thank you so much for the suggestion, Angel. But no, I'm not going to introduce myself as the host with the most. Anthony writes, "Jumanji just passed. Homecoming is the 5th highest grossing film of 2017 worldwide. How did it earn more than Spider-Man, Thor, Guardians, and Wonder Woman?" Well, how did any movie earn more than them? It's simple. Look, had Jumanji opened in May, it would not have stood up. We just talked about how Jumanji and Greatest Showman are in their 8th weeks and still in the top 5. That's a testament to them being very good movies. It's also a testament to it's not had very stiff competition come out after they opened up. So that's probably why. And the fact it's a good, fun movie. You put all those things together, that's how. If Jumanji opened in the same week as Spider-Man, Thor, Guardians, then it wouldn't have made anywhere near as much money. This is a good example of it picked a good spot, went in there, and has been able to have long legs, because nothing really significant or all that great has come out after it. So that's why that happened. TL Lucario just sends in a $1 super chat. Thank you so much, TL Lucario. Calvin Severo writes, "John, I think they should call the movie Marvel's Civil War and give a real Cap-centric movie to finish his trilogy. What do you think about that?" I disagree. I think Civil War is very clearly a Captain America-centric film. Captain America is at the center of that movie. He is the main character of that movie. But it had all these other characters. Guess what? Every movie has a whole ton of characters. Every movie does. You just happen to recognize all the other characters around Captain America. But to me, one of the things I really appreciated about Civil War was that it was very distinctly a Captain America movie. He is the centerpiece of the movie. Everything about the movie revolves around him, really. And you can make an argument that it's about him and Steve and about Tony Stark, but really it stays most focused on Captain America. It really is his film, and it really is a continuation of Winter Soldier. So in that sense, yeah, I disagree with you on that one, Calvin. I really do think Civil War really was distinctly a Captain America movie. TL writes in again, "Do you like any mecha-based shows?" Well, I mean, not today. I mean, back in the day, there were certainly a number of them back in the day. And there've even been some talk about like Tobey Maguire taking on a couple like Robotech and stuff like that, like talking about taking those on as movies. But I haven't watched those in a long time. And there's nothing today that's out there today that I really watch. But if you've got some good suggestions, by all means, please tweet them to me. James B. writes, all movies are subjective, right? So why do we use the term guilty pleasure to make an excuse as to why we like a particular movie? I think I use the term guilty pleasure because I recognize everything that's terrible about this, but even though I recognize like all the terrible things about this, I still enjoy it. Something about it appeals to me. Like a great example for that is Mortal Kombat. On so many levels, Mortal Kombat's a bad movie, man. On so many levels, it's just a bad movie. But I eat it up. There's something about it that just appeals to me. And so we call it a guilty pleasure. Not when other people don't like it and we do. That's not when I use the term guilty pleasure. I use the term guilty pleasure when I know, you know what, this is a pretty bad movie on most every scale, but I gotta admit, it's still, even though I know it's kind of bad, it appeals to me. That's when we use that term guilty pleasure. Cool as Ice with Vanilla Ice. Horrible movie. But I love watching it, man. It's a guilty pleasure. So we don't call it a guilty pleasure because other people don't like it and you do. No, it's a guilty pleasure when even you recognize, yeah, this is pretty bad, but I'm eating it up. It's like when you're eating an entire bucket of ice cream at midnight. Oh, this is so bad for me, but I gotta eat it because it's so delicious. You know, it's kind of one of those things. That's how I use the terminology guilty pleasure at any rate. Thanks a lot for the question, man. It's good that you brought that up. Matt Glacier writes, thoughts on the next 3 days with Russell Crowe? Oh, God. You know what? Russell Crowe's like my favorite actor in the world. And I got to bring this up. Days. Russell Crowe. Just to, oh, yes. Next 3 days. God, completely forgettable. Absolutely, completely forgettable. He actually put out a series of films. And it's really, really too bad because he's got like one of my big crushes in the world, in Elizabeth Banks in that movie with him. But it was an utterly forgettable film. I remember Paul Haggis directed it. I think Paul Haggis directed it. Give me a second here. Yeah, Paul Haggis directed it. And which is great. And Paul Haggis, you know, Crash and shit like that. But for me, it was just like a pretty utterly forgettable film. Anyway, the Crone Doggy writes, you'll find IMDb to be garbage because not all have seen the movie, but Academy members don't always watch the film either. 7,000 Academy member votes keep it legit, but the 700,000 votes on IMDb don't. Well, here's the thing, though. IMDb, when you're talking about these kinds of movies, right? IMDb, you're talking about, you can make the thing, and this is where this big urban myth comes from, that the Academy voters don't watch the movies. There was once, when a guy said to another guy, I didn't see that movie, but I voted for it because, you know, all my other friends told me it's the movie I should vote for. So I voted for it. There was one time that happened once. In a 7,000 member thing, one time that it happened once. In an academy made up of all film professionals who take the Academy very seriously. And it represented 0.0001% of the vote. It's this kind of logic drives me nuts when people try to employ this type of logic and taking an extreme exception and trying to act like it's a valid argument. To me, I always bring a sports analogy to this. If you're playing a game of basketball and you're under your own net, is it wiser to dribble the ball down the court, try to set up your offense, and try to score a basket? Or is it better just, hey, I'm under my own net, I'm just going to heave this thing across the entire court and just try to score now? No, that's stupid. It never works. But John, I once saw this clip on SportsCenter in 2003 where a high school game in Raleigh, Durham, where this high schooler did it and it went in the net. So, see, it's a valid play. It's a valid play. That's the same logic. That's the same logic. Picking out the rarest of exceptions and trying to act like it's a common thing. Like, yeah, well, I saw this kid once in 2003 heave the basketball from under his own net and went in, so therefore it's a valid strategy. No, it's not, because like that 1 in every 5,000 will go in. It's not a valid strategy. And it does, I gotta admit, it drives me nuts when people try to bring up this one time, one guy said, I didn't watch a movie, one guy to 7,000, and people go, well, see, there you go. Academy members don't watch the movies. Look, I know a lot of Academy members. They watch the movies. Will there be an exception? Yes, there will always be an exception. But here's a great example. Like, some other people were tweeting me about this. IMDb had long before any audience anywhere had seen Black Panther. Over 6,000, I think 7,000 votes were registered on IMDb. And all of them, almost all of them, were either 10 or 1. 1 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. None of these people had seen the movie. And there are ways to game the system and do it. And yeah, I'm sorry. When you've got like over 6,000 votes before the movie even opens, 6,000 to 7,000, I'm sorry, it's disqualified out. When it is commonplace now that we even see Facebook groups popping up and saying, we're organizing to try to corrupt the fan voting system on this. Like, it's too easy to do. It is far more common. Trying to compare that to this one time, one guy said this one thing 1 year out of a 7,000 member body, trying to compare those two things and saying, see, these are equal things, so we can argue about them on equal levels. That's not sound logic. That's not logic. So I kind of reject the notion, man. Like, I get where you're coming from and everything, and it's a valid thing to at least bring up and express, but I reject that kind of logic. I don't think the two situations are in any way similar, nor are they any way comparable. So trying to compare them is like trying to compare an apple to a spaceship. It's just, they don't belong in the same conversation. All right, but thank you for bringing it up. No question should be off limits to bring up, and I'm glad you brought it up. All right, Phil Lee writes, are there special Oscar rules for actors playing themselves? Wondering about Kumail playing himself. How much more accurate can you get? No, there are no special. Look, it's such a rare thing. And look, even if you're playing yourself, you have to play yourself in such a way that comes across and delivers a great performance and comes across in a way that touches and affects the audience. You still got to be able to do that. So, I don't think there's any special Oscar category for that, nor would I put it in there, because you still have to be really captivating on screen. You have to draw the audience into the screen, because quite honestly, look, if I played myself in a movie, and I just played myself the way I just am every day, I ain't winning no Academy Awards, and it's not going to be a very good movie. You need an actor with skill to bring that to life on screen, so I don't think there should be special awards for that, or special rules. Angel Chan writes, suggestion, Wolfenstein 2 game for cutscene reviews. Thank you so much, Angel. And actually, a bunch of people have suggested that one as well. That, Uncharted 4 has been a popular one. Metal Gear Solid has been one. Tomb Raider, since there's a new Tomb Raider coming out, a lot of people have been suggesting the Tomb Raider one to me. I'll pick my next one, but you're not the only one who suggested that one. Anthony writes, but John, argument against your gripe with Spider-Man suit. He is not Iron Man Jr., because that scene when he lifts the debris encapsulate why Peter doesn't need the suit to be Spider-Man. No, Anthony, what that scene does is it proves my point. That scene proves my point that he doesn't need that a Iron Man Jr. suit. Why? That's fine that he had that one scene where it's just him. I think the whole movie should have been that. Instead, you get one scene with him just doing his thing, and the rest of the movie is him being Iron Man Jr. in an Iron Man Spider-Man suit. And it took away from the specialness of Spider-Man and the uniqueness of Spider-Man. So if anything, Anthony, I would say that that one scene you're bringing up just proves my point, that he didn't need an Iron Man suit that looked like a Spider-Man suit to be a great superhero. And that's the part that drives me nuts about that movie. And there are a bunch of you guys who disagree with me. Totally cool that you do. I'm just saying, for me, from my perspective, like, it just drives me nuts that Spider-Man couldn't just be Spider-Man. He had to be Iron Man Jr. And it drove me nuts. Spider-Man is unique enough, and he has a cool set of powers. Just let him use those. Instead, they gave him an Iron Man Jr. suit. And I still love the movie. I do. But I think I would have liked it even more if they just let him be Spider-Man, like in that one scene, Anthony, that you're pointing out. Ghostface writes, movies that have won 11 Oscars. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Titanic, and Ben-Hur. I love Ben-Hur. What's your take? Oh, yeah, Ben-Hur. You guys heard me. Ben-Hur's in my top 10 favorite films of all time. I've put out my top 10 list before, and Ben-Hur is one of those films. I love Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur's amazing. It's like some of the most epic storytelling. It's too bad that the sequel, or the reboot, didn't do so well. It could have been so good, man. Cameron Peterson writes, favorite MCU actor portrayals off the top of your head. Mine are Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, John Bernthal as Punisher, and Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I think you got to go Loki. I don't know how you get away from Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Tom Hiddleston as Loki is right up there. I put him right up there with Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I think I preferred Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but I do love Tom Holland as Spider-Man too. So yeah, I'd say you got to have Hiddleston in there as well. All right, guys, you know what? Last question of the day, because I've run out of time here. Last question of the day. Brandon Torres writes, do you have your own head canon for Star Wars? I like to believe Thrawn and Plagueis books are canon, and Rebels is not. Some EU titles is better than canon. No, to me, the only thing that's really, really canon is the movies. Rebels has done a great job tying into canon for sure, and it is canon. But, you know, with all the new asterisks coming out, I don't consider them canon, you know? All right, guys, I have run out of time, so I'm going to have to put the brakes on this. Listen, for those of you who have sent in questions that I'm not getting around to, it is Monday, which means open mic is a little bit later today at 3 o'clock. Your questions that you've already sent in will get answered first on open mic a little bit later today. So make sure you come back for that, and we will get to those remaining questions. There's about 15 more questions there. I'll blow through those ones first once we get to open mic a little bit later this afternoon. All right, guys, that will do it for me. Thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of the John Campea Show. I really appreciate you guys being here. Don't forget, click the thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not subscribed yet. Follow me on social media simply at John Campea, and make sure, in the words of Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other when you're debating and discussing movies, because we're all on the same team, movie fans, even if we have different points of view. All right, guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.